Welcome to the esynergy podcast. I'm Ulrike Eder, Chief Marketing Officer at esynergy, and in each episode, we sit down with business and technology leaders to hear their unfiltered story, the lessons hidden behind success and failures, and practical tips to turn big ideas into real-life impact. Today, I'm very excited to be joined by Maria Bynes, co-founder of SynapseDX, a startup with a deliberately unfashionable pitch, which is boring AI for real businesses. Maria has spent the last 20 years in data analytics and architecture, and she started at Avanade in the US, moved over to the UK a while ago, left consulting for Microsoft, and then eventually found her way into one of the largest and most regulated financial institutions in the world. When she told them that she was going to leave and start her own company, they asked her not to. So she did both for a while, and we'll dig into that. And I guess as of today, Maria, and she'll tell us, it's your first day at SynapseDX.
I know. What a way to celebrate.
Very exciting. So we'll talk about that and dig into it. But yeah, congratulations. And just a little fun fact before we get into it. Maria, I guess at an early age, begged her mom to stay up late to watch Buck Rogers, who I was not familiar with before, because she was always obsessed and fascinated by robots. And I think it's fair to say that dream has turned into reality for you, and I'm really excited to get stuck in. So, Marie, you spent the last year running your startup and work at a large financial institution in parallel, with the same hat on, but very, very different worlds, I guess. Tell us a little bit about that and what that felt like, but also your ambition to kind of move out of that regulated large enterprise world and start your own little company.
Yeah, sure. So data architecture has been my last 10 years or so of career. And working at this large organization, I really focused on enterprise architecture because I like to know why things work, how things work. But when they asked me to stay, because I thought I was pursuing this opportunity with AI, which, by the way, was not in this financial institution at all, they asked me, no, please don't leave. Would you just stay for a little while longer? So it's not like the movies. You don't get to just leave your company and work full-time on your own company, the reality of financing and all that. So it worked. It was beneficial, but it really gave me perspective because how can these large financial institutions actually benefit from AI? It's a lot harder than it sounds.
When you told your employer that you were going to leave and they said, no, can you please stay? What does that tell us about where regulated businesses are right now with regards to kind of your profession and AI, I guess, in general?
I think they have a choice. They either embrace AI or don't exist any longer because it's just ripe for disruption. So they know, and they're being pressured by their boards and their shareholders. They absolutely have to operationalize with AI. So how do they do it? I hoped I helped them a bit.
Amazing. From a consulting perspective, we hear this a lot from regulated businesses and industry sectors where we're really excited about AI, but it's hard to operationalize it and we can't move fast because of regulation. Is that a real constraint or is it a mindset problem?
I think it's a little bit of both, but we use regulation as an excuse way too much. Regulation is just a rule book, and AI loves a rule book.
I love this. We talked about this in our prep sessions. I'm really keen to hear more about that now.
Yeah, so, you could pop a policy in the chat GPT and chat with it. I think everybody's done that a couple times already. And you'll notice that it forgets at the beginning and the end. There's something wrong with the middle. And you have to have that rule book be enforced at all times and feel confident that it is. And a lot of these regulated industries are doing what's called experiments or pilots or POCs, and they never get into production. And a lot of that is because they can't translate that ambiguous conversation into an actual workflow that has hard yeses and nos and decisions. And I think instead of approaching it as an experiment, you need to approach it as a workflow And then how would you use AI to orchestrate that?
Mhm. And from a practical perspective, how easy is it to feed regulation, the all the rule books? How easy is it to feed that into the LLM, get something useful out of it?
Well, I think that's the first mistake. Everyone assumes it's an LLM.
There you go.
AI is way bigger than just an
Guilty, Maria.
LLM. Yeah. I mean, yes, ChatGPT really opened our eyes into what the machine learning algorithms could do for us. A large language model is one of them. We've had a lot of different flavors of AI over the years. Why can't we use all of them? So, this great, amazing thing that LLMs changed, I think, the world was that it can write code. And everyone believes that that capability has to be separate from an average user using it. I'm not saying that an average user should be writing code, but why don't you create an application that the average user needs to execute a business process to get an outcome and use all of your components that AI gives you, including real time building code, real time understanding, real time rule and using that, at the same time. Why can't you? I don't think anyone is really considering it because it sounds like a hard problem and it crosses a lot of
Mm.
domains.
So do you feel like generally, and I guess not just regulated businesses, but in general, are we too cautious? Are we not pushing hard enough? And I guess where I'm going with my question is, with your startup, you're pushing the envelope quite a lot in that direction. But what is the art of the possible? And where should we be, pushing, be a bit more proactive and be a bit more curious?
I think it's actually silos. The one thing I learned in having a startup versus, working in this large organization with hundreds of years of bureaucracy built up is that everyone kind of focuses on their one area. And as a result, they don't talk to the other areas to actually combine these disciplines into one solution.
Mm.
And I think that's half of our problem. We do talk about the business a lot when you're in IT and you want to focus on solving the business problem. But sometimes the business should be asking how we might solve the problem in a way that gets to their outcome, but we're not controlling it, which is a big problem. IT
Mm.
likes to control a lot of stuff. I know I said that on camera.
No, I think you're. And does the business sometimes ask, is that happening in your
No,
experience? Yeah.
no, I think it's very much an us versus them
Mm.
kind of mentality right now. Like, you got to work together if you want AI to work because
Mm.
you need that whole um, understanding of the business problem because that's where the value is now. It's not in writing the code. It's not in understanding the infrastructure. If you want to survive in IT, you need to
Mm.
know the business and you need to work together on that.
We get asked a lot, so we do a lot of proofs of concept and implementations of AI and enablement through AI. But obviously, the reoccurring questions from our prospects, from our clients, is like, who does this really well? Maria, who does this really well? Is there anybody who's really far ahead in the enterprise world?
Oh, wow. You know what? I don't think anyone is other than Anthropic. And even that's probably chaos. Um, I think we're going to have to be. And I think that that is going to change. Right now, this is the year of agentic AI. Everybody's talking about, okay, now
Yeah.
the novelties have worn off. Now we need to operationalize. So now everyone is scrambling with how do you do that? How do you operationalize with AI? And I think over the next 3 years, we're going to see uh, maybe financial services being ahead. Insurance, I think, will be a bit further behind. Healthcare, it's so siloed, and I mean this, with the greatest respect in UK and in US. So until they solve their own problems, I don't think healthcare will ever be truly operationalized.
Are there any geographic areas, are there any regions, countries that for them it's easier from a sovereignty perspective, maybe from an implementation side of things?
Well, I mean,
Is there that angle?
have you heard of the lobsters in China? Have you heard of these
I have
folks?
not heard of the lobsters.
I know it's amazing. I just want to read it for a case study. So, we talk about sovereignty a lot, and there may be different ways of governing, but you have to recognize China is doing some amazing things with AI because even though they do have regulation, they really opened up and encouraged their own people to operationalize their personal lives with AI. And OpenClaw was that massive thing that came out a few months ago. Just, revolutionized everything because you could just download open source and suddenly tell it, to go order your Amazon for the week. And as a result, all these lobsters came out and they're all learning free training on how to use OpenClaw. So I think that that's amazing. China is likely to be ahead.
Interesting. Um, SynapseDX, your positioning is boring AI for real businesses. I guess, and I'm assuming a deliberate choice in a world full of hype. Tell us a bit more about your ambition and what you're trying to do.
Well, because of my background and knowing that you can't just drop a model like a OpenAI or an Anthropic model into an org and assume that it's going to revolutionize your company. It is not. It's going to stay and remain side of desk, your co-pilot, your chat GPTs. I saw an opportunity to go, okay, let's give some visibility to the COOs of how much it's going to cost. How much is that decision costing? That bill at the end of the month can be quite like frightening. And then give some empowerment to managers. How is my team doing? How are they making decisions? What decisions have they made? Were they the right ones? Did they follow our compliance policies? And then, escalate where necessary if maybe there was some authorization that should have been done that wasn't. And for the person who's running their lives, get rid of that stuff that you don't want to do and let someone build the infrastructure to manage all the bits in between that you used to, probably in a spreadsheet for why you made a choice.
Hmm. And generally, when business take the step from sandbox, from POC to production, where are usually the things that break, and how do you mitigate that? How do you think about that?
It's everything outside of that experiment. Usually, the ones that I've seen are just trying to prove whether the model gives an output they expected. And a couple of things, right? LLMs are not deterministic, which means they may not give you a consistent answer every time. And then we kind of gloss over all the manual inputs, the dropping of files. We kind of jump around and forget about what happens with the file that is created or the output that is created. So instead of thinking about testing the model, what workflow are you trying to create? And a lot of times we don't think in workflows. We just think
Mm,
I need a report or I need an entry in a system or I need an action to occur. But at the end of the day, it is likely a workflow. We just may not have thought about our engagement in that
mm.
workflow.
It's interesting because I feel like we've been trying to push really hard as as people in organizations, not just from a consulting perspective, but also in other businesses, to think about outcomes, right? What's the outcome? What are we trying to achieve here? Um, but I guess what you're saying is, in this case, actually, you need to think about the process rather than just the end result.
Absolutely. Otherwise, there's a whole lot of tools besides the expensive LLMs that would likely give you that
Yeah.
outcome.
As if you know it, I want to talk about the cost, and you touched on it earlier as well, the kind of FinOps element to using AI. You work on that, and you I guess talk about that from a Synapse DX perspective. Um, Talk to me a little bit about organizations using AI, the cost attached, and I guess the visibility to a COO, or generally any kind of CXO in that matter. Um, what's happening? Are we aware what we're spending? Is it getting out of control?
Oh, the token wars have started. They absolutely have. So, tokens are the currency, really, of an LLM, and it translates to how much you pay. They're usually like fractions of a penny per token. Tokens are just basically chunks of
Hmm.
words. I'm oversimplifying it for the data scientists out there. But when you add up those tokens, they're doing something. They're either writing code for you by consuming and giving back, or they're making a decision for you, or they're giving you some feedback while you're having an interactive conversation. When you are using it a lot and you become more and more dependent on it, naturally those tokens will go up. When you don't have a lot of visibility into how your folks are talking to your models, suddenly you realize you have no way of controlling. You get this massive bill at the end of the month and you ask, what did I get for that? I can't prove productivity increased because I don't know the processes they were using it for. And then I don't really know the decisions that were being made through those tools and if they were even the right ones. So you need a bit of control on that. And I'm not endorsing everybody start, capturing your prompts that you personally use. I think those need to be a bit personal, but you can capture a redacted version of that. You can start to see how many tokens were used for each of those conversations, and you can start creating trends from that. And that infrastructure that I just described doesn't really exist easily. There are tools like Microsoft that are starting to create logs, but even those aren't usable. That's still too far away from an executive. So you need to create that infrastructure so you can have more insight into that.
Do you think this is already a problem? Are organizations tracking the cost?
No, I don't think they're tracking it at all. I mean, I think everyone I've spoken to want to track it. They're just like, how do I do that? And right now it's just a big fat bill
Yeah.
and a licensing discussion.
And interesting, I was at a conference with senior technology leaders last week, and one of the main key questions we kept coming back to was accountability around AI. Who's actually accountable? And part of the or one lens and one angle that we discussed is the cost element, where people seem to be spending because they're not responsible, but nobody else is either, and it's becoming a real problem, not just from a cost perspective, but because nobody has a shared understanding of who should actually be accountable when it comes to AI. Do you have an opinion?
Oh, I always have an opinion. I don't think AI should be responsible. I think the person that's using it should be, and that translates all the way up to the top of your org. And I say that because AI is just an overpriced tarot reader. It does not have any soul. It does not understand your ambitions. It's just repeating back to you, maybe not everything you want to hear, depending on how snarky you make your responses. But at the end of the day, the person responsible is actually the one that needs to use it for their business processes. So you have to gain control.
So are you saying within our departments, the leader of the department is responsible for their team's use of AI and the cost attached? Or is it the CFO? Is it the CIO? I guess that was the debate.
Ah,
Is it commercial? Is it technology? Who actually, if we are overspending, who do I go to and say, hey, this is not okay?
I
Stop it.
honestly believe this is my theory, and it might be controversial. I I feel like AI has to be treated like you would pay an employee. And when you think about that employee doing things and you think about the responsibility, there's some level of autonomy you give to the employee. But at the end of the day, who gets called into the office? Well, in most companies, it cascades up.
Mm,
So that means we're all responsible from employee to mid manager all the way up to the C level. And that means we need some control and understanding, visibility, and transparency of
mm.
what is occurring with that AI employee.
So a little bit, if I may paraphrase, treat it as any other um, line item in terms of area of responsibility, where we always ask our employees, we always ask our colleagues to be responsible, to think about cost, to think about the budget. Just do the same and apply some common sense. Make sure you're aware of what the cost is, and I guess be a responsible human being using
Absolutely.
it.
And when that employee is costing too much and making bad decisions, what do? You call in the people that are surrounding that employee to see if
Yeah.
you can't come up with a PIP. Put that AI on a PIP. Why not? That might mean you need to
I
talk
love
to
that. That'll
your
be the
folks
quote of the podcast. Put the AI on a pip. Let's try that.
if you gotta.
um, Maria, before we wrap up, For every guest, we always kind of have one closing question, which is if you had a piece of advice for current business leaders, future business leaders, that you only wish you would have known sooner, what would
That's a
it be?
hard one. AI is not a human being, and they do not think like human beings. And when you talk to one and you treat it like a human being, it's just going to mirror back to you a response. They are really quite dumb. And I know that no one actually believes that because they're like, oh no, it's so intelligent, it was so amazing. No, it actually isn't. It's an excellent mirror. So my feeling is it is a tool. We should use it as a tool, treat it respectfully. Yes, I always answer with please. It just feels
So do
right.
I. And I say
I
thank you too.
know.
And it apparently costs a lot more money doing that, doesn't
It's
it?
a huge, huge problem. They'll come
I
up with a
know.
way, I'm sure, just to change that. But yeah, I mean, it is a tool that you need to respect, but use it as a tool, and it will, I think, do amazing things for you.
Amazing. Maria, so great to have you. Thanks for coming. And thanks for listening.